It is that time of year again when people start to freak out because they look at the 10 millibar charts and actually not understand what they're reading. I'm going to make some clarifications here before I even jump into this very special PowerPoint that I made. I'm actually going to be challenging a lot of these models, and including myself, to see if yesterday's runs or recent last runs can compare to today's runs. Those runs I agreed with. Today's runs didn't make too much of a sense to me, and I've told you guys from time and time again, if my observations don't match the models, odds of me trusting them are very slim. However, the model runs previously, not the ones right away, but previously make more sense, while some model runs today come up to a better clarity. So here what we're going to do right over here, we're going to jump straight into it. I am not losing my voice, just to let you guys know. So, people are canceling winter, again, saying that the polar vortex is too strong. No, in fact, everything is going according to plan. I want you to look at this, okay? This is the GEM assemble at 360 hours. Now, I've always been stating this over and over again. If you look at a model, don't look at hours, look at observations. Even if a model spits something 360 hours out, if the observations are screaming potential, odds are that that may happen. I've seen models spit something out 48 hours in advance and completely do a 360 because the observations made no sense. Technology is not perfect. Models have their flaws, and it's okay to say I don't know why the model did this, but it is good to figure out why. So we look at this over here, and people go, oh, no winter. The circumpolar center is all the way over in Siberia. You have to understand something, okay? The center of the circumpolar, you don't want over down here. You don't want it suppressing our storms, okay? This is not the best spot for it, but then again, January was never the best month for snowstorms. So, it's the negative tilted elongation of our polar vortex at 10 millibars with our stratospheric warming whipping around on the west coast, deflecting any lower height anomalies away from the west coast, because this circumpolar vortex was here and it was focused on the west coast. Now it's elongated east, okay? Here, right over here, the CIPS analogs have been dropped. Over here you see the probabilities of below average temps with almost 100% down in the southeast, protruding away as you head toward the northeast and the upper Great Lakes. Your temperature parameters around that period, you could have 35 down in South Jersey over here, and you could have the 30 freezing line up in this area with 32 right somewhere in the middle. Okay, so if you think January is going to be a warm and mild month, I can assure you that most likely that will not happen. If you understand how stratospheric warming works, you have a snow building up out in Siberia, okay? This is in the fall. Increased autumn snow in Siberia. What does this do? The solar radiation bounces off of the snow and goes back up into the stratosphere, and this heats the polar vortex. This depiction does not actually explain that, so that's why I'm doing it for you, but you can see that the stratosphere is right over here, okay? Now, as we start to get right before we go into winter, now the polar vortex is starting to feel the impact, all right? We're going to look on the other side of the globe over here to see what's going on, all right? So you see that temperatures are going to start to slowly rise, okay? And your jet streams are going to start to act a little bit more erratically from land to ocean confluence of low and high pressure. And then finally that response happens, and the stratospheric warming unleashes the polar polar flow, with the polar jet coming down and, the elongation focusing on the east coast, which, again, all of these things have happened. I don't see why that would not happen, okay? The European's 10 HPA temp shows the elongation of our polar vortexes. Oh, it is still strong. We have intense warming over here. 34, okay, Fahrenheit anomaly. And we have another one kind of swing around over here. But look at this one. It's pushing against up over here. All right? I'm just going to do this real quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about. No. Oh, fine. It's fine. Okay, whatever. This over here is pushing against this like that. And you can see that there is no elongation anymore on the west coast. It's all starting to focus Midwest and the east. So I don't see any concern at all. I mean, we go over to the 22nd. And if anyone said that the stratosphere is not warming, what's this over here? Okay, this is not sudden stratospheric warming. This is not major stratospheric warming. Okay, but this over here is the best warming anomaly we've had so far. Okay, and we have another one that happens again in January. As you see that the lower height anomaly in the upper atmosphere tries to get going again and then gets squished by that. So everything looks very good as it extends from 10 to almost 500 millibars. Okay, that's where our 500 millibar pattern is. It is so close to touching it, yet the jet stream is located at 250 millibars. So if we're starting to already affect the jet stream, according to this, in the upper levels, what do you think is going to happen to 500 millibar? Exactly my point. Again, elongation of our polar vortex is negative. Okay, Rossby wave penetration protrusion pushing polar vortex east away from the west coast, while elongation is again negative. I mean, people earlier were posting the mean polar cap height. Yeah, it was a beast back in like December 11th, but you may not notice right here, but there's actually warming. And it's literally like 0.1, but it's starting to pop up right here. And you can see that it's pushing a bend in the polar cap height, while the polar cap height up here is starting to weaken. If you go on Dr. Drew Cohen's website, he explains that the AO is going to go negative. I mean, this comes from him, and he is a smart man. All of our MJO plots are going to go from 6, 7, and then to 8. 5 of them right there, okay? Now, I was speaking to Bobby Marshall of East Japan Weather Authority, and he was concerned about the upcoming pattern. So I reassured him. I'm not personally too concerned. I wouldn't want a PV suppression scenario to unfold. Point is, it elongates with a negative tilt east instead of positive towards the west coast. Definitely has become distorted, and that is a good thing. I expect the circumpolar center to swing around as January goes on. That is why I'm sticking with the second full week of January as opposed to New Year's to the first week, as people have been saying. I remember last year the circumpolar center was around the Great Lakes, and Suppression City was an understatement of what happened at times in February. So to me, I like what I see. However, I will do some digging to see if anything concerns me, but right now this is how I expected it. Now, if the entire lower height anomaly pulls out of the east, then I'd be concerned, but I am not. And I have been checking that data, and I am not concerned. The AAO has a strong district correspondence to our polar vortex strengthening when you have your Aleutian low and your Atacama high pressure system. Okay? Now you want this to generally be positive because this will accelerate the process of killing regions 1 and 2. As you can see, it goes negative and we begin to have an anomaly that starts to form up over here. However, it's going to go positive again, as we see, and this El Nino is going to be done. Alright? CANCIPS model elongates out a positive PNA over here with storm development starting around, the southeast region, either heading out to sea or being suppressed Miller A's or Miller B transfers as well. So a storm can cut up into the Great Lakes. But you have rising height anomalies here while they're dropping in the southeast, okay? This is very, very important because this allows your, PowerPoint, please don't do this to me right now. This allows your storms to undercut the trough, going through underneath the PNA, cutting through the trough and getting on the southeast coast. Same thing for CFSV2, similar, just in a little bit more of a different way. It has a little bit more blocking down in the lower latitudes. And it still has the same feature with the trough undercutting the PNA ridge going into the southeast. However, the CANCIPS makes a lot more sense. CFS has just been not all that great. Our anomalies out in our El Nino regions 1 and 2 have rapidly cooled. This is very important, okay, because if you want a nasty winter, get rid of those warm waters, especially in those areas, El Nino 3, which that region also counts. If you look at the 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly, we start off strong over here, okay? And then we weaken. We weaken, and we start to disperse. If we go back over here, we disperse the geopotential heights, okay? You have a trough west, ridge east, high pressure, Bermuda high, and then watch what happens. Gone. Just like that. You have positive PNA, okay? And you have cold air working its way down on the east coast. Same exact thing I was speaking about before. This is going to be your pattern changer right here. This is the response with our albedo effect. Your Siberian ridge is going to come swinging around, and it sets up a positive PNA. Oh, but I guess I may be bullshitting that, right? No, it's right there. I mean, it's literally right there. Now, it's going to take some time for it to swing around, okay? Even if it's 0 hours to 384, it's going to take time. But I watched it. That's what's going on over there, okay? So we have all the, a good pattern setting up. And as it continues to protrude north, you're pushing all these lower heights out of the North Pole and spilling them east, which is very good. If we go back over to our 10 millibar GFS, okay, taking the flow of how high pressure can be even at 10 millibars, Rossby wave perforation pushing on polar vortex, originally starting, the perforation was actually at a positive tilt on the west coast, and then it goes right over to negative with another one forming east over here, and the one pushes down west, preventing the west coast from establishing another continuous trough negative PNA pattern, at least for January. Okay, our EPO is going to most likely tank. Another thing we have to take into consideration, and this is the result of what happens when that happens. I've talked about this before. This gets your cross-polar flow going. The EPO, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful drivers teleconnection-wise on top of the MJO and your ENSO. And to wrap things up, solely up it, we have our Peruvian current doing its dirty work, pushing in the regions 1 and 2 and 3. So all that warm water over here was pushed this way. See? Now just be like Liz from American Horror Story and just be a boss about it. And just know that winter is coming as you put out your cigarette if you smoke. If you don't, then pretend that is your magic wand to get winter going while you're reading your favorite book. Liz is not worried, I'm not worried, and neither should you.